High in the Indian Himalayas, at 16,500 feet above sea level, there is a small lake. Every year, when the snow melts, hundreds of human skeletons appear along its shores. Skulls, bones, hair, jewelry, still attached to bodies preserved by the mountain cold for over 1,000 years. Scientists spent decades trying to explain who these people were and how they died. When Harvard University finally ran DNA tests on the bones, the answer they got raised far more questions than it solved. Because 14 of the skeletons were not Indian, they were Greek. What were Greek people doing dead in the Indian Himalayas over 1,000 years ago? Nobody knows. In 1942, an Indian forest official discovered skeletal remains scattered in and around the lake. He reported the discovery, but it was not made public until the late 1950s. One explorer described the site to an Indian radio station as a ghastly scene that made us catch our breath. The lake, officially named Roopkund, is estimated to hold between 500 and 800 sets of human remains. It sits near a shrine to the mountain goddess Nanda Devi. Initially, it was believed the skeletons were Japanese soldiers who had died while crossing the route during World War II. The British government dispatched investigators who confirmed the bones were from a much older period. For 6 decades after that, nobody could explain who they were or how they died. In 2019, Harvard University, in collaboration with researchers from India, Germany, and across Europe, conducted the most comprehensive DNA analysis ever performed on the Roopkund skeletons. What they found turned every previous theory on its head. The remains appeared to come from distinct groups of people from as far as the Mediterranean, and they arrived at the lake several times over a 1,000-year span. Of the 38 skeletons analyzed, 23 had ancestry typical of South Asia. 14 had ancestry typical of the Eastern Mediterranean. One individual had Southeast Asian ancestry. We were extremely surprised by the genetics of the Roopkund skeletons, said lead researcher Edoin Harney of Harvard University. The presence of individuals with ancestries typically associated with the Eastern Mediterranean suggests that Roopkund Lake was not just a site of local interest, but instead drew visitors from across the globe. 14 Greek people, dead in the Indian Himalayas, their bones separated from Indian bones by over 1,000 years. They did not die together. They were not part of the same group. They arrived at this lake in completely separate events, centuries apart, and every single one of them died there. The cause of death adds another layer of horror. There was no sign of a fight, ritual suicide, homicide, or widespread illness among the bones. The dead were mostly in good health and ranged in age from 18 to 35. Forensic analysis revealed unhealed injuries on several skulls, leading scientists to conclude they were struck by something coming from directly above. The most credible scientific explanation is a sudden, catastrophic hailstorm. Hailstones large enough to crack skulls, striking without warning at 16,500 feet above sea level, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. But this explanation only works for one group at one time. It does not explain why Greek people were at this lake 1,000 years later. It does not explain what brought people from the Mediterranean to a remote Himalayan shrine in the first place. And it does not explain why this specific lake, this specific spot on Earth, kept drawing people to their deaths across more than a millennium. The local people of Uttarakhand have an answer. They believe a king named Jasdawal embarked on a pilgrimage to Nanda Devi, the goddess of the mountain. He ignored the warnings of priests not to bring a noisy procession to the sacred site. He brought dancers, musicians, and luxuries to a holy place. At Roopkund, the goddess struck. A storm of divine wrath, hailstones as heavy as stones, rained from the sky. The king's entire procession fell. Their bones still lie there, a warning to all who enter with pride. Science says hailstorm. The mountain says judgment. Neither explanation tells us why Greeks were there. Neither explanation tells us why people kept coming back to a lake where everyone dies. Roopkund Lake is still there today. People still trek to it every year. The skeletons are still visible when the snow melts. No fence, no barrier. You can walk right up to the bones of people who died 1,000 years ago and touch them if you want to. Harvard has given us DNA results. Scientists have given us theories. The mountain has given us a legend. But the question that nobody has been able to answer is still the same one that forest official asked in 1942 when he first saw the bones. What happened here? If this mystery stayed with you, subscribe and hit the bell. New mystery on Buried Chronicles every single week. And trust me, next week we go somewhere the government does not want us to go.